Somewhere, far beyond the sun, there is a planet that doesn't behave like the others. A world tilted on its side, silent, cold, and deeply unnatural. This is Uranus, and right now, you're falling toward it. At first, it feels calm, almost peaceful. But the closer you get, the stranger everything becomes. The light fades, the cold intensifies, and something feels wrong, because this isn't just another planet. This is a place where the rules don't make sense. Welcome to falling into space. And if you enjoy these journeys into the unknown, don't forget to subscribe, because tonight, you're not just watching space, you're falling into it. You are already falling. At first, it doesn't feel like anything. There is no wind, no sound, no sensation pulling you downward, just silence. A perfect, endless silence, stretching across the darkness as you drift forward, slowly at first, almost weightless, almost calm. But you are moving, faster than your mind can understand, faster than anything on Earth has ever moved, without effort. And ahead of you, growing larger with every passing second, is Uranus. From a distance, it looks simple, a smooth sphere, glowing in a soft blue-green light. No storms like Jupiter, no rings as dramatic as Saturn, no violent colors, just calm, too calm, almost artificial. And that's the first thing that feels wrong, because planets aren't supposed to look like this. Not this smooth, not this silent, not this empty. As you fall closer, something becomes clear. Uranus doesn't spin like the others. It doesn't rotate upright like Earth or Mars. It's tilted, almost completely sideways, as if something hit it long ago, hard enough to knock an entire world off balance. Which means everything about it is different. Day and night don't behave normally. The poles face the sun directly. One side of the planet can stay in daylight for years, while the other is trapped in darkness. And now, you are falling straight into that unnatural world. The light begins to fade, not suddenly, but slowly, because Uranus is far from the sun, almost 3 billion kilometers away. Out here, sunlight is weak, cold, barely strong enough to illuminate the planet's surface. The blue color deepens, becomes darker, heavier, less inviting. And now, you are close enough to see it. That surface you thought you saw doesn't exist. Just like Saturn, Uranus is a gas giant. There is no ground, no solid place to land, only layers, clouds, gas, stretching endlessly downward. And you are heading straight into them. There is no warning, no moment where something stops you. You simply cross the boundary. 1 second, space. The next, atmosphere. At first, it feels like nothing. A thin mist brushing past you. Soft, almost gentle. But that illusion doesn't last. Because Uranus is cold. Colder than almost any planet in the solar system. Even colder than Neptune, despite being closer to the sun. The temperature drops instantly, far below anything you've ever experienced, below -200 degrees Celsius. A cold so intense, it doesn't just freeze, it drains. It pulls energy away from everything. And the deeper you fall, the worse it gets. The clouds begin to surround you, not thick like Earth's, not stormy like Jupiter's, but layered, strange, almost flat. Uranus doesn't have dramatic storms on the surface. It hides everything. Its atmosphere is quiet on the outside, but that quiet is deceptive, because beneath these calm layers, something else is waiting. You continue falling deeper. The light fades even more. The blue turns darker, almost gray, then almost black. There is no horizon anymore. No sky, no ground, just endless layers surrounding you from every direction. And now, you start to feel it. The pressure. At first, it's subtle, a slight resistance, a gentle push from the gas around you. But every second, it increases. The atmosphere becomes denser, heavier, thicker. Breathing would be impossible here, not just because there's no oxygen, but because the pressure itself would crush your lungs before you could even try. And still, you keep falling, because there is nothing to stop you. The deeper you go, the stranger Uranus becomes. This isn't just hydrogen and helium like Saturn. Uranus is different. It's what scientists call an ice giant, which means hidden beneath these upper layers are gases you don't expect. Water, ammonia, methane. Not in the way you know them, not as liquids, not as something stable, but compressed, heated, transformed into something far more extreme. And you are falling toward them. The atmosphere begins to shift. The gas around you becomes thicker, more complex. The temperature, which dropped so violently at first, now begins to change. Not warmer in a comforting way, but unstable, unpredictable. Because Uranus is not just cold, it is unbalanced. Something about this planet is wrong, not just its tilt, not just its appearance, but its energy. Unlike other giant planets, Uranus doesn't release much internal heat. It's almost quiet on the inside. And that makes everything feel even more unnatural. Because as you fall deeper, you expect chaos, storms, violence. But instead, you get silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. The pressure continues to rise, stronger now, more noticeable. Your movement slows slightly, not because gravity is weaker, but because the atmosphere is pushing back. You are no longer falling freely. You are forcing your way through something. And still, there is no surface, no end. Just deeper layers waiting below. And that's when the realization begins to form. This isn't going to be like Saturn. This is going to be stranger. Because Uranus doesn't show you what it is. It hides it, layer after layer. And whatever is beneath is nothing like what you expected. You are still falling, deeper now, into a planet that doesn't behave like any other. And something ahead, something hidden in the darkness, is about to change everything. Because the deeper you go into Uranus, the less it feels like a planet. And the more it feels like something you were never meant to enter. You are still falling, but now the feeling is different. It is no longer empty or calm. The space around you has turned into something heavy, something that resists you, something that reminds you with every second that Uranus is not just a planet. It is a system that is slowly pulling you apart. The clouds above have disappeared completely. There is no light left from the sun, no blue glow, no sense of where you came from. Everything is darker now, deeper, thicker. The only thing that exists is the layer you are inside, and the layers still waiting below. The pressure is rising faster. It is no longer subtle. It is no longer something you could ignore. It presses against you from every direction, equal, constant, impossible to escape. There is no up to move toward, no direction where the force becomes weaker. Every part of Uranus is pushing against you at the same time, compressing the space around you, reducing every gap, every movement, every possibility of escape. And yet, you are still moving, slower now, but still descending. The gas around you is changing. It is no longer light like before. It is no longer something you could imagine floating through. It has become dense, almost liquid, thick enough that movement feels forced, like pushing through something that does not want to let you pass. And that is when you enter the next layer. This is where Uranus begins to reveal what it is truly made of. The hydrogen and helium begin to fade. They are still there, but no longer dominant. Instead, new elements begin to surround you. Water, ammonia, methane, not as liquids, not as gases in the way you understand them, but as something else entirely. Under this pressure, under this temperature, these materials do not behave normally. They are compressed into exotic states, forming a deep interior that scientists often describe as an icy mantle. Even though there is nothing solid about it, it is fluid, but not like water. It flows, but slowly, heavily, as if the entire planet is filled with a dense, moving ocean that stretches for thousands of kilometers. You are inside that ocean now, and everything becomes stranger. The temperature begins to rise again, slowly at first, then more noticeably. The extreme cold of the upper atmosphere is gone. In its place is something unstable, something shifting, something that does not follow a simple pattern. The deeper you go, the more energy builds, trapped inside the planet, unable to escape easily. But Uranus is different. Unlike other giant planets, it does not release much heat. And that creates something unusual, something unsettling. The interior feels quiet, not calm, not peaceful, but muted, as if the planet is holding everything in, as if something is missing. The currents around you are weaker than expected. There are movements, yes, but they are slow, irregular, almost hesitant. It is nothing like the violent turbulence of Jupiter or the chaotic storms of Saturn. Instead, Uranus feels still, too still, and that makes it worse, because it feels unnatural. As you descend deeper into this ocean-like layer, the pressure becomes overwhelming, not suddenly, not violently, but continuously. Every second adds more weight, more force, more compression. At this depth, nothing built on Earth could survive. Structures would collapse. Materials would break. The idea of form itself begins to lose meaning. And yet, the fall continues, because there is still no surface, no ground, no boundary, only deeper layers waiting below. The color of the environment has disappeared completely now. There is no blue, no green, no trace of the planet's outer appearance, only darkness and density, and a faint, almost invisible movement within the material around you. Then something changes, not in the way you expect, not with light or sound, but with behavior. The material around you begins to act differently. The pressure has reached a point where the elements themselves start to transform. Chemical bonds break, new structures form. Matter behaves in ways that cannot exist under normal conditions. And this is where Uranus becomes truly alien, because deep inside this layer, scientists believe something extraordinary happens. The carbon within methane molecules is crushed under immense pressure, broken apart, reformed into something completely different. Solid carbon, diamonds, not small ones, not rare ones, but massive formations created by pressure so extreme that the planet itself is capable of producing them. And those diamonds do not stay in one place. They fall slowly through the dense interior like rain, endless, silent rain, deep inside the planet. You are falling through that region now, through a place where matter is being transformed into something harder than anything you have ever known, through a world where rain is not water, but crystal. And still, there is no ground, because even here, even in this strange and impossible layer, Uranus does not give you a place to stop. Only more depth, more pressure, more transformation. The deeper you go, the slower everything becomes. Movement is harder now. The density around you resists every direction, every motion, every attempt to continue descending. It is like being trapped inside something that is slowly becoming solid, but never fully does. And that is when another realization begins to form. You are still not at the center, not even close. Because Uranus is larger than it appears, deeper than it seems, and everything you have experienced so far is only part of its outer structure. There is still more below, something heavier, something denser, something that holds the planet together. And whatever is waiting there is nothing like the layers above. You are still falling, slower, heavier, deeper, into a planet that hides everything beneath silence. And the further you go, the more that silence begins to feel like a warning. You are still falling. But now, even that word feels wrong, because nothing around you moves the way it should. There is no clear direction, no sense of down, no feeling of speed. Only pressure, surrounding you from every side, constant, unrelenting, growing stronger with every moment. The strange ocean of water, ammonia, and methane you pass through has become something else now, thicker, heavier, more resistant, and the deeper you go, the less it feels like a fluid, and the more it feels like something you cannot pass through at all. The temperature is rising again, not in a smooth way, not in a predictable way. It fluctuates, shifts, increases in bursts, as if the planet itself cannot decide what it wants to be. Uranus is unstable at its core, not chaotic like Jupiter, not violent like Saturn, but inconsistent, quiet on the outside, and deeply unpredictable within. And now, you begin to enter a region where even the strange materials around you can no longer behave as they did before. The pressure has reached a point where matter is forced into new states. Water is no longer water. Ammonia is no longer ammonia. Methane has long since lost its structure. Everything is breaking apart, reforming, compressing into something denser, something closer to a supercritical fluid, a state where the difference between liquid and gas disappears completely. You are not falling through something, you are inside it. And the deeper you go, the more the environment resists your existence entirely. The idea of movement begins to fade. You are no longer accelerating. You are no longer even descending in a way you can feel. Instead, it is as if the planet is slowly absorbing you, layer by layer, particle by particle. Everything that once made up a clear boundary between you and the environment is disappearing. And still, there is more below, because Uranus does not have a clear center, not one you could recognize, not one you could reach. It has layers that blend into one another, transitions that never fully complete, regions where the difference between states of matter becomes meaningless. But somewhere, deep within all of this, there is something heavier, something denser, something that anchors the planet itself. You are approaching it now. The pressure is beyond anything that can be described in familiar terms. Millions of times stronger than the pressure at Earth's surface. Enough to compress atoms closer together than they naturally want to be. Enough to change the way matter behaves at a fundamental level. The environment is no longer just strange, it is alien, completely disconnected from anything that exists on Earth. The currents that once moved around you are gone, or rather, they are so slow, so heavy, so dense that they are no longer noticeable. Everything feels still. But that stillness is deceptive, because energy is still present. Heat is still rising from below. Forces are still at work. They are just hidden, buried under layers so dense that their motion cannot be seen. And then, something changes again. Not suddenly, not violently, but noticeably. The pull you once felt, the constant downward force that defined your fall, begins to weaken. Not because gravity has disappeared, but because of where you are. Deep inside a planet, gravity behaves differently. Mass surrounds you in every direction. The pull from above, the pull from below, begins to balance. And slowly, the idea of down begins to disappear. You are no longer falling, you are suspended, held in place within a region where direction has no meaning, where movement has no purpose, where everything is simply there. This is as close as Uranus gets to a center, not a solid core, not a surface, but a region where motion fades into stillness. Scientists believe there is a dense central region here, a mixture of rock and ice compressed into an incredibly heavy mass. But even this is uncertain, because no probe has ever reached this depth. No direct observation has ever been made. Everything we know is based on models, calculations, indirect measurements, which means that what lies here could be even stranger than we imagine. The core may not be solid at all. It may be partially dissolved, blending into the layers above. A gradual transition, rather than a defined boundary. A fuzzy center, where nothing truly begins and nothing truly ends. And in this place, everything slows, everything stabilizes, everything becomes part of the planet itself. You are no longer separate, no longer moving through Uranus. You are within it, part of it. And yet, the story does not end here, because even in this deep, quiet region, nothing is permanent. The heat below continues to push upward. The layers above continue to shift. Slow currents, almost imperceptible, begin to form. And over time, those currents begin to move, very slowly, very gently, but enough to change everything, because what is pulled inward can also be carried outward, not quickly, not in a way you could ever experience, but over immense spans of time. The interior of Uranus is not fixed. It is circulating, transforming, rearranging itself. And that means this is not the end of the fall. It is only the deepest point, the moment where everything stops before something else begins. because the forces that brought you here are not finished yet. They are only changing direction. And somewhere, far above, beyond the crushing layers, beyond the silent depths, light still exists. The faint glow of the sun, the distant stars, the emptiness of space, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, something begins to move upward, not falling anymore, not descending, but rising, carried by forces too slow to feel, too vast to understand. The journey is not over. It has only changed. And what comes next is even stranger than the fall itself. You are no longer falling, and yet you are not still. Somewhere deep within Uranus, where pressure erased direction and gravity lost its meaning, something begins to shift again. Not quickly, not in a way you can feel, but slowly, almost invisibly. The balance that held you in place starts to change. The heat rising from deeper layers has not stopped. It never stopped. Even in a planet that appears quiet from the outside, energy still moves within. It travels through dense layers, pushing upward, carrying material with it, creating slow currents that stretch across thousands of kilometers. And now, you are part of that movement. At first, it feels like nothing, a slight change, a subtle drift. But over time, direction returns. Not down, not up in the way you remember, but a new path, a gradual movement away from the deepest region, toward the outer layers. The environment around you begins to change again, very slowly. The pressure is still immense, but it is no longer increasing. For the first time since you entered Uranus, it begins to ease. Not enough to feel safe, not enough to allow movement freely, but enough to notice. The dense, heavy material that surrounded you starts to loosen, just slightly. The strange, compressed states of matter begin to shift back, step by step, layer by layer. Supercritical fluids become less rigid. The boundaries between gas and liquid begin to return. The deeper, alien physics of the interior slowly gives way to something slightly more familiar. But this is not a smooth ascent. Uranus does not move in simple layers. The currents that carry you are uneven, irregular. They twist and turn, pulling you sideways, sometimes downward again, before continuing upward. It is not a straight path. It is a chaotic system, hidden beneath a calm surface. Time stretches again, without light, without reference. There is no way to measure it. Moments could be years. Years could be millions. Everything becomes part of a slow, continuous change. And as you rise, something else returns. Movement. Not the violent motion of storms, not the chaotic turbulence of Jupiter, but something more subtle, more controlled. The layers above begin to flow more freely. The material becomes lighter. The currents accelerate. The temperature shifts again. It does not simply cool. It fluctuates, because Uranus is unstable. Different layers interact in complex ways, exchanging energy, creating pockets of heat and cold that exist side by side. And then something appears. Not light, not yet, but contrast. A faint difference in the darkness, a slight variation in density, in color, in texture. The uniform, endless depth begins to break. You are approaching the upper layers again. The gases change composition. Hydrogen and helium begin to dominate once more. Methane returns, giving Uranus its blue color. Though here, in these depths, that color is still hidden, buried beneath layers too thick for light to pass through. The pressure continues to drop, slowly, relentlessly. And with it, something else returns. Speed. The resistance around you weakens. Movement becomes easier. The currents carry you faster now. What once felt like stillness begins to feel like motion again. You are rising, but not by choice, not by effort. You are being carried. Because Uranus is not static, it is a system, a slow, massive circulation of material that moves between layers over immense periods of time. And everything within it becomes part of that system. The deeper layers feed the upper ones. Heat rises, material shifts, energy flows. And now, after everything, you are part of that upward flow. The darkness begins to change. At first, it is barely noticeable, a faint glow, a distant hint of light filtering through layers above. Then, slowly, it grows. Not bright, not warm, but present. The sun. After everything, after the fall, after the depths, after the pressure that erased all direction, light returns. But it is not the same light. It is weaker, colder, filtered through layers of gas that distort it, scatter it, transform it into something pale and distant. And yet, it is enough. The upper atmosphere is close now. The clouds begin to form again, thin at first, then thicker, layered, structured. The blue color of Uranus begins to emerge, faint at first, then stronger. The calm surface you saw from space, the smooth, silent appearance, is returning. But now you understand it. It is not calm. It is hiding everything beneath it. The storms you did not see, the pressures you did not feel, the transformations that happen far below, all concealed beneath a quiet, featureless surface. And as you approach that surface again, one realization becomes impossible to ignore. You did not just fall into Uranus. You passed through it. From the emptiness of space to the deepest layers, and now back again. Not unchanged, not the same. Because nothing that enters a world like this comes out the same. And as the clouds begin to thin, as the light grows stronger, as space approaches once more, one question remains. If you could fall through a planet like Uranus and come back out the other side, what does that say about the universe itself? Because this was never just a fall. It was a passage. Through something that should not behave this way. Through a world that hides its true nature beneath silence. And now you are almost out. Almost back into space. But the journey is not finished yet. Because what waits beyond Uranus is something even more vast, even more empty, even more impossible to understand. And you are still moving toward it. You are still rising, but it doesn't feel like escape. The upper layers of Uranus surround you once again, but now they feel different. Not because they have changed, but because you have. What once looked calm from the outside now feels like a mask. A thin, silent layer hiding everything beneath it. You've seen what exists below. The pressure, the strange oceans, the quiet, unnatural interior that never behaves the way you expect. And now, you are moving back through it. The clouds are thinner here, lighter, less dense. They drift in long, smooth bands, barely moving compared to the chaos hidden deeper inside. From a distance, Uranus looks like the calmest planet in the solar system. almost empty, almost unfinished. But now you understand the truth. That calm is not natural. It is silence. The light grows stronger, not warm, never warm, but brighter. The sun is still far away, but after everything you've passed through, even that faint light feels intense. It spreads across the upper atmosphere, giving the planet its soft blue color. Methane in the air absorbs red light, leaving behind that cold, distant glow. And for a moment, it almost feels peaceful again. But that feeling doesn't last, because something else is happening. The deeper layers of Uranus are still pushing upward. Heat is still rising. Energy is still moving through the planet. And as you reach the upper atmosphere, those slow, hidden movements begin to interact with the lighter gases above. The winds begin to form again. At first, they are subtle. A gentle movement, a slow drift across the clouds. But then they build. Faster, stronger. Uranus may look calm from space, but its winds are powerful. Hundreds of kilometers per hour, moving silently across the planet's surface, shaping its atmosphere in ways that are almost invisible. And now, you are inside them. The motion returns. Not chaotic, not violent, but constant. You are carried sideways, pushed across layers, pulled into currents that stretch around the entire planet. You are no longer rising in a straight line. You are part of the atmosphere now, moving with it, becoming part of its flow. The clouds shift around you, bands stretch across the sky. Faint storms appear in the distance, subtle, hidden, nothing like the massive systems on Jupiter or Saturn. Everything here is quieter, but not safer. Because even in these upper layers, Uranus remains hostile. The temperature is still far below anything life could survive. The atmosphere is still toxic. The pressure, while lower than the depths, is still crushing compared to Earth. And yet, this is the closest thing Uranus has to a surface, a place where light exists, where movement is visible, where the planet reveals just enough to be seen, while hiding everything that matters. You continue to rise, closer now. The clouds begin to thin. The blue color fades slightly as the atmosphere becomes less dense. And then you see it. Space. Not clearly at first, just a darkness above the clouds, a contrast between the planet and the emptiness beyond. But it is there. After everything, after the fall, the pressure, the silence, the strange depths, you are returning to the place where it all began. The pull of Uranus begins to weaken, not suddenly, not completely, but enough. The planet no longer holds you as tightly as before. Its gravity still exists, still pulls, but it is no longer dominant. The currents that carried you upward begin to fade. The atmosphere becomes thinner. Movement becomes easier, faster. And then you break through. One moment, clouds, the next, space. The silence returns, but it is different now, not empty, not calm, because you know what lies beneath. Behind you, Uranus hangs in the darkness, a smooth blue sphere, silent, distant, unchanged, at least from the outside. But you know the truth. It is not empty, it is not calm, it is not simple. It is a world of pressure, of transformation, of strange and hidden layers that never reveal themselves. And now you are beyond it, drifting once again into the vast emptiness of space. But this time, you understand something you didn't before. Planets are not just objects. They are processes, systems, environments that change everything that enters them. And Uranus is one of the strangest of them all. You continue moving, away from the planet, its blue glow slowly fading behind you, its gravity weakening with every passing moment. The stars begin to appear again, clearer now, brighter, more defined. The universe stretches out in every direction, endless, silent. And for a moment, it feels like freedom. But then, another realization begins to form. You didn't just leave Uranus. You passed through it. And that changes everything. Because if a world like that can exist, can behave in ways that seem impossible, can hide entire layers of reality beneath a calm surface, then what else is out there? What other planets, what other systems, what other parts of the universe are just as strange, just as hidden, just as misunderstood? The journey is not over. It has only expanded. Because now, you are no longer falling into a single planet. You are moving through a universe full of them. Endless worlds, endless mysteries, endless possibilities. And somewhere ahead, something else is waiting. Something just as strange, just as silent, just as impossible to understand. And you are still moving toward it. You are back in space, but it doesn't feel like the beginning anymore. The silence has returned, but now it carries something else with it. Not calm, not peace, something heavier, something that follows you even as you drift farther from Uranus. Behind you, the planet shrinks. That smooth blue sphere, so quiet from the outside, slowly fades into the darkness. Its clouds become a blur. Its color weakens. And eventually, it becomes just another point of light among countless others. But you know what it hides. You know what exists beneath that silence. And that changes the way everything looks. You are still moving. There is no force pushing you now. No atmosphere resisting you. No pressure shaping your path. But motion does not stop just because nothing is touching you. In space, once you move, you keep moving. Forever. Unless something changes your path. And something always does. Far away, unseen, gravity still reaches you. The sun's pull stretches across billions of kilometers, bending your trajectory in a slow, gentle curve. You are not escaping the solar system. Not yet. You are still part of it, still bound to a structure much larger than any single planet. Your path becomes an arc, wide, almost unnoticeable, but real. Around you, the emptiness reveals itself again, or at least, what feels like emptiness, because space is not truly empty. It is filled with particles so small, so distant from each other, that thou seem invisible. Dust, ions, fragments of matter drifting between planets. The remnants of collisions, of formations, of events that happened long before you arrived here. And now, you are part of that environment. The sun appears as a distant star now, still brighter than the others, but no longer dominant. Its light is weak, cold, barely enough to illuminate the vast space around you. The farther you move, the more the solar system changes. The inner planets are far behind. The gas giants are distant. Everything becomes spread out, stretched across distances so vast that objects that once seemed massive now feel insignificant. And ahead, there is something else, a boundary, not visible, not marked by any line or barrier, but real. The edge of the sun's influence. The solar wind that flows outward from the sun does not continue forever. At some point, it meets the interstellar medium, the thin gas that exists between stars. Where these two regions meet, something happens. The solar wind slows, compresses, changes. This is known as the heliopause, the boundary between our solar system and the space beyond. You are moving toward it, slowly, over time. And as you approach, the environment begins to shift. The solar wind weakens. The particles around you change. The influence of the sun begins to fade, replaced by something larger, something colder, something more distant. The stars ahead feel closer now. Not physically closer, but more present, more dominant. Because the sun is no longer the center of everything. This is where the scale of the universe becomes impossible to ignore. The solar system, everything you once knew, everything you passed through, is just a small region, a bubble, floating within a galaxy that contains hundreds of billions of stars. And beyond that galaxy, billions more. You continue drifting, crossing that invisible boundary, leaving behind the space shaped by the sun and entering something far less familiar. Interstellar space. Here, everything is quieter, colder, less defined. There are no planets nearby, no large bodies shaping the environment, only vast distances filled with faint traces of matter. The particles around you are different now. They come from distant stars, from ancient events, from regions of space you have never seen. And the motion continues. There is no stopping, no destination waiting ahead, only movement across a scale that does not end. Time stretches again, years become meaningless, centuries pass without change. And yet, change is happening. Because even in this emptiness, gravity still exists. Distant stars pull on you, not strongly, not suddenly, but enough. Enough to slowly alter your path, to guide your motion over millions of years. And eventually, far in the distance, something appears. A cloud, faint, almost invisible, but larger than anything you have seen since leaving Uranus. A region of gas and dust, stretching across light years. A nebula. It glows softly, illuminated by distant stars. Its edges are undefined, its structure constantly shifting. And within it, something is happening. The same process you have already been part of. Collapse, formation, creation. New stars are being born inside this cloud. Material is gathering, compressing, heating. And around those forming stars, disks of matter begin to take shape. The early stages of new planetary systems. The same process that created Uranus, the same process that created Saturn, the same process that shaped everything you have seen. And now, you are moving toward it. Not as a traveler, not as an observer, but as matter, as something that can become part of it. Because nothing in the universe remains unchanged. Nothing stays separate forever. Everything moves. Everything interacts. Everything becomes something else. The journey you began, falling into a strange, silent planet, has led you here, to the space between stars, to the beginning of something new. And as the nebula grows closer, as its faint glow fills the darkness ahead, one truth becomes clear. You never stopped falling. You just stopped noticing it. Because in a universe like this, every path, every motion, every moment leads into something else. You are still moving, even here, where everything feels completely still. The vast cloud ahead begins to surround you, slowly at first, almost invisibly, until the darkness of space is no longer empty. Faint threads of gas and dust stretch across your path, thin and delicate, yet massive beyond comprehension. This is not a planet, not a system. It is something earlier, something unfinished. A nebula, a region where the universe begins again. The environment changes in a way that is subtle, but undeniable. Particles are no longer rare, they are everywhere. Still distant from one another, still separated by space, but close enough now that interaction becomes possible. Tiny collisions begin, barely noticeable at first. A grain of dust meets another, sticks for a moment, separates, then meets something else. It seems insignificant, random, but it is not. Because this is how everything starts. The cloud is not stable. Gravity moves through it, slowly, quietly, pulling material inward, creating regions where density increases just enough to begin a chain reaction. A small increase in mass leads to a slightly stronger pull. That pull gathers more material. That material increases the pull even more. A feedback loop, silent, relentless. And somewhere within this vast cloud, one region begins to change faster than the rest. You are moving toward it now. At first, it is nothing more than a faint glow, a slight difference in brightness, a hint that something is happening where the density is greater. Then, slowly, it becomes clearer. The gas begins to collapse. Not all at once, not violently, but steadily. Material moves inward, speeds increase, collisions become more frequent, energy builds, heat begins to rise. And in the center of that collapse, something begins to form. A star, not fully ignited, not yet complete, but real. A growing mass of gas, compressing under its own gravity, heating with every passing moment. Around it, a disk begins to appear. Material that cannot fall directly inward begins to spread out, forming a rotating structure. It spins faster as it collapses, flattening into a thin disk that stretches across millions of kilometers. Within that disk, everything is moving. Particles collide, merge, break apart, reform, and slowly, something familiar begins to happen. The same process that formed Uranus and every other planet you have ever known. Accretion. Tiny particles stick together, become larger. Those larger pieces attract more material, grow again. From dust to rock, from rock to fragments, from fragments to objects large enough to have gravity of their own. And once gravity takes over, the process accelerates. The region around you is no longer quiet. It is active, chaotic, full of motion. You are no longer drifting freely. Your path is being shaped, pulled, curved, guided toward regions of higher mass. And eventually, you are captured. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but inevitably. Your motion becomes part of the disk. You begin to orbit around the forming star. Everything around you follows the same pattern. Paths curve into circles. Orbits form. Motion becomes structured. And within this structure, the building continues. One object grows faster than the others. It begins as a cluster, then becomes something larger, a protoplanet. Its gravity strengthens. It pulls in nearby material, clears its path, dominates its region. And as it grows, it begins to resemble something familiar. A world. Not yet complete, not stable, but real. The disk around it continues to feed it. Gas spirals inward. Fragments collide with it. Mass increases. Pressure begins to build at its center. And over time, layers begin to form. A dense interior, lighter material above. An atmosphere begins to take shape. It is not Uranus, not yet, but it could become something like it. Because the process is the same. The material that once passed through the depths of a strange, silent planet is now part of something new. Something forming, something growing, something that will one day exist as its own world. And within that process, nothing is wasted. Fragments that do not become part of this forming planet are thrown outward. Some become moons. Others remain in the disk. Some escape entirely, drifting back into space to begin the cycle again. The system organizes itself, not perfectly, not cleanly, but effectively. And over millions of years, what was once a cloud becomes a system. A star at the center, planets in orbit, debris scattered across vast distances. A new solar system. And within it, you are no longer separate. You are part of the structure, part of the formation, part of the process that never stops. Because this is what the universe does. It takes matter, breaks it apart, scatters it across space, and then slowly, inevitably, brings it back together. Again, and again, and again. The fall into Uranus was never the end. It was a step, a transformation, from one world to the beginning of another. And as the new system continues to grow, as the star begins to shine brighter, as the planets take shape, one realization remains. You were never just falling. You were always becoming something else. And the universe is not finished with you yet. You are no longer just part of a cloud. What once felt like an endless drifting region of dust and gas has now become something structured, something defined. The forming system around you has grown more organized, more powerful, more real with every passing moment. The young star at its center burns brighter now, its light pushing outward, illuminating the disk that surrounds it. And within that disk, everything continues to change. The motion is no longer random. It follows patterns, orbits, paths that repeat over time, shaped by gravity, by momentum, by the slow but unstoppable laws that govern the universe. And you are inside those paths now. The disk stretches across millions of kilometers, a vast, rotating field of material, thin but enormous. It is not uniform. Some regions are dense, filled with fragments that collide and merge constantly. Others are sparse, where particles drift for long periods without interaction. But everywhere there is motion, constant, endless. Closer to the center, things are more intense. The star's gravity is stronger, the heat is greater. Material moves faster, colliding with more energy, creating flashes of light that ripple through the disk like distant sparks. farther out, everything slows. The motion is wider, gentler, but still part of the same system. Somewhere within this disk, one region begins to dominate again. You can feel it, not as a force you understand, but as a shift in direction. Paths begin to curve more noticeably. Material gathers, the density increases. Something is growing here, faster than everything around it. A new center, a new mass. It begins small, just a cluster of particles that manage to stay together long enough to attract more, then even more. Collisions become more frequent. Some objects break apart under the force. Others merge, becoming larger, stronger, more capable of pulling in surrounding material. This is how worlds take shape. The protoplanet grows. Its gravity strengthens. It begins to clear a path through the disk, capturing what it can, pushing away what it cannot. Around it, a faint ring begins to form, debris that did not fall inward, but also did not escape. The pattern is familiar, even if the world itself is not. Over time, the growing mass begins to change its surroundings. Gas from the disk is pulled toward it. An atmosphere begins to form, not stable, not complete, but present. Layers begin to develop, a dense interior built from countless collisions, a lighter outer region shaped by captured gas. And something about it begins to resemble what you have already seen. Not exactly the same, not identical, but similar. Because the process repeats. Just as Uranus formed long ago from a collapsing disk, just as it gathered gas, built layers, created an atmosphere, this new world is following the same path. But there are differences. The environment here is not identical. The temperature is different. The composition of the disk has changed. The distance from the star alters everything, which means the outcome will not be the same. This world may not become a quiet, tilted planet like Uranus. It may become something else entirely. A gas giant, a rocky planet, a frozen world, or something stranger. Because no two systems are ever truly identical. And yet, the foundation is always the same. Gravity, motion, time. You are now fully part of this system, not drifting freely anymore, not falling into a single world. You are orbiting, carried along by the rotation of the disk, pulled by the gravity of the forming star, influenced by the growing mass of the protoplanet nearby. Everything around you follows the same pattern. Paths curve into loops. Loops stabilize into orbits. Orbits interact with one another. Some collide, some merge. Some are thrown out entirely, sent back into deep space, where the cycle may begin again somewhere else. This is not a calm environment. It is active, chaotic, full of motion that never truly stops. And yet, from a distance, it would look peaceful. A glowing disk around a young star. A beautiful, silent formation, the darkness of space. But inside it, everything is happening at once. Time continues to stretch. Millions of years pass, slowly, steadily. The system begins to settle. The star stabilizes. Its light becomes constant. Its energy defines the environment around it. The disk begins to thin. Material is either absorbed or pushed away. The protoplanet grows larger, heavier, more defined. Its atmosphere thickens. Its structure becomes more stable. And eventually, it becomes a planet. Not in a moment, not suddenly, but gradually, over immense spans of time. And within that planet, layers begin to form. Pressure builds, temperature rises, gases compress, materials transform. A familiar pattern. The same pattern you experienced before. Because the journey is repeating. From cloud to disk to world. From formation to structure to depth. And if this planet continues to evolve, if it gathers enough mass, if its environment allows it, it may one day become something like Uranus. A quiet world, a smooth surface, a hidden interior full of strange, impossible layers. A planet that looks calm, but hides everything beneath. And if that happens, then the cycle will continue. Because one day, something will fall into it. Something will descend through its layers. Something will experience the same pressure, the same transformation, the same silence. And the story will begin again. Because in this universe, nothing is unique. Everything is part of something larger. A system, a cycle, a process that never stops. And as this new world continues to grow, as its orbit stabilizes, as its structure becomes permanent, one truth becomes clear. You are never just falling. You are always becoming part of something else. And the universe is still building. You are no longer just part of the disk. Time has moved forward, not in seconds or minutes, but in millions of years. The chaos that once filled this region has begun to settle. Collisions still happen, but less frequently. The violent formation phase is ending. What remains is structure, stability. A system that now resembles something complete. The young star at the center burns steadily, its light constant, its energy shaping everything around it. The disk that once surrounded it has thinned, its material either absorbed into planets or scattered into distant regions of space. And among those planets, one has grown large enough to dominate its orbit. A world, not forming anymore, not chaotic, but stable. You are part of it now, not drifting, not falling, but bound. Your motion is no longer free. It follows a path, a defined orbit shaped by gravity and time. Around you, the environment feels familiar, not because it is the same as before, but because the pattern has returned. Layers, pressure, atmosphere. This planet is not identical to Uranus, but it shares something deeper with it. The same process that built Uranus has built this world. The same materials, the same forces, the same slow transformation of matter into structure. The outer atmosphere stretches above you, vast, thick, layered. Light from the star filters through it, scattering, bending, creating colors that shift depending on depth. From space, this planet would look calm, smooth, quiet, but inside, you know better, because you have seen what lies beneath a calm surface. The deeper layers are hidden, always hidden. Pressure builds again, slowly, inevitably. Temperature begins to rise as you move inward. The atmosphere thickens, gases compress, movement becomes more difficult. The same journey that once took you through Uranus begins again, not as a memory, but as a process repeating itself in a different place. The difference is subtle, but real. This planet may be warmer or colder. Its composition may shift the way its interior behaves. Its rotation may create different patterns of motion. But the foundation is the same. gas above, denser layers below, and somewhere deep inside, a region where matter transforms under pressure into something unfamiliar. The descent begins again. Not because you chose it, not because something pushed you, but because gravity always pulls inward. The atmosphere becomes heavier. Movement slows. The light fades. And once again, you leave the surface behind. The deeper you go, the less the planet resembles what you saw from the outside. Layers blur, boundaries disappear. Everything becomes part of a continuous transition from one state to another. The same truth returns. There is no surface, only depth, only change. And once again, the strange transformation begins. Materials compress. Gases become fluids. Fluids become something else entirely. Pressure increases beyond anything that can exist naturally on a surface. Temperature rises. Energy builds. The environment becomes alien, disconnected from anything that can exist under normal conditions. You have been here before. Not in this planet, but in this process. And now you understand it. This is not a single event. It is a pattern, a cycle that repeats across the universe, from formation to stability to transformation. The deeper you descend, the slower everything becomes. Movement fades. The environment resists change. The idea of falling begins to disappear again, replaced by something heavier, something more final. At a certain depth, direction loses meaning. Gravity no longer pulls in a single direction. It surrounds you, balances, cancels itself out. You are no longer falling. You are suspended, held within the deepest region of this new world, just as you once were inside Uranus. And once again, there is no clear boundary, no solid core you can reach, no final point where the journey ends. Only a region where everything becomes dense, still, and inseparable. The center is not a place, it is a state. A point where motion fades into nothing, where everything that entered the planet becomes part of it. And once again, you are no longer separate. You are part of the system, part of the structure, part of the planet itself. And yet, even here, the process does not stop. Heat continues to rise. Energy continues to move. Slow currents begin to form again. And just like before, what was pulled inward will eventually be carried outward, because nothing remains in one place forever. The cycle continues, from the depths back to the surface, from the surface back to space, from space back to formation. Again and again. And now you understand something that was not clear before. This was never about Uranus. It was never about a single planet. It was about the nature of the universe itself. A system where everything is connected, where every path leads into another, where every fall becomes part of something greater. And as the slow movement begins again, as the deep currents prepare to carry everything upward, one truth remains. There is no final destination, only transformation, only continuation, only the endless motion of a universe that never stops building, never stops changing, never stops becoming something else. And you are still part of it. You are no longer falling. And yet, nothing has stopped. What began as a simple descent, a quiet drift toward a distant, silent world has become something far greater than a journey. Because the truth is, you never just fell into Uranus. You entered a process. The world you passed through was never meant to be understood from the outside. Its calm surface, its soft blue color, its silence were never the full story. Beneath that stillness, everything was changing. Pressure was transforming matter. Layers were shifting. Energy was moving in ways too slow to see, too deep to measure. And you became part of it, not as an observer, but as something that changed with it. You fell through cold into heat, through light into darkness, through gas into something heavier, stranger, more permanent. And then, without ever realizing it, you began to rise again. Because nothing in the universe moves in a straight line forever. Everything bends. Everything returns. Everything becomes part of something else. The planet you entered did not stop you. It did not end your path. It transformed it. And when you left, you did not leave unchanged. You carried that transformation with you, through the emptiness of space, through the silent regions between worlds, through the slow drift towards something new. You moved into a cloud, a forming system, a place where the same process began again, from fragments to structure, from structure to a new world. And once again, you became part of it. Because that is the truth the universe never hides, even if it feels impossible to see. Nothing is separate. Nothing is permanent. Nothing ends. Every planet, every star, every cloud of dust drifting through space is part of the same cycle, a system where matter is broken apart, scattered across unimaginable distances, and then slowly, inevitably, brought back together again. You were never just falling. You were moving through that cycle, from one state to another, from one world to the beginning of the next. And now, here, at what feels like the end, you understand something that was hidden at the very start. There is no final destination, no place where everything stops, no moment where the journey is complete. Because even now, even as everything seems still, even as the process repeats itself in silence, motion continues. The new world will change, its layers will shift, its structure will evolve, and one day, far beyond anything you could experience, something will fall into it. Something will pass through its atmosphere, through its depths, through the same transformations you experienced. And the story will begin again, because the universe does not create endings. It creates cycles, endless, unbroken, always moving. And somewhere, far behind you, Uranus still exists, a quiet planet, tilted, silent, unchanged from the outside. But now you know the truth. It is not empty. It is not calm. It is not simple. It is part of everything, just like you. And that is the final answer. What happens if you fall into Uranus and everything goes wrong? Nothing ends. Everything continues. And you are still moving through it forever.